let's talk about eating disorders from the perspective of a man. So if you're a guy that struggles with disordered eating or body dysmorphia, stick around at the end of the video and I promise that this will help you. Eating disorders are surprisingly very common and it can be detrimental to the lives of so many people. I've been through it, I know men and women that have been through it, people who still deal with it, and it's debilitating, it sucks, and your mind is working against you at every opportunity to rationalize some of the most destructive things you could do to your body. But something I've come to notice is that the majority of resources and stories out there are geared towards women. And this is strange to me because although males make up a decent percentage of people who have eating disorders, most of the people you see getting treated for them are women. And that leaves a lot of men out there undiagnosed. And this could be because people sometimes think that eating disorders are like a feminine thing or that someone's less of a man if they have one. And eating disorders can even be seen as emasculating, or that a man is feminine or gay for having an eating disorder. So, I remember going through the worst of mine back in 2018. I felt reluctant a lot of times to even bring it up to people, partly because it's a difficult thing to talk about in general, but also because I was afraid of how I would be perceived as a man. And so hopefully as I talk about my experiences and more men talk about theirs, we can continue to break that stigma. So is there a difference between men and women and how eating disorders are presented? I definitely think so. And eating disorders in men and women can certainly manifest in different ways. And the main difference that I see is that eating disorders seem to often be, but not always, in guys associated with gym culture, the fitness industry, and how much muscle mass you have. And this is something I've seen a lot of men and even teenagers active in bodybuilding communities become obsessed about. This gives them, body dysmorphia. They're constantly comparing themselves to other guys in the gym, and they keep thinking they need to get bigger and bigger and bigger at the expense of their own mental health. While women with eating disorders usually try to make themselves more thin, slender, and smaller, I think that a lot of males involved in fitness and exercising see themselves as too small or not having enough muscle. And this can lead to what is commonly known as bigorexia. And this can often lead to, over-exercising, eating restriction, binge eating, and it ends up having the opposite effect of what people want it to have. I remember in my past, the more I obsessed about food and working out and staring at every little micro imperfection I saw in myself in the mirror, the worse my body looked because I wasn't giving it the nutrients it needed, the rest it needed, or the love it needed. I got to a point where my brain told me that I didn't deserve to eat unless I worked out that day. Do you realize how crazy that sounds? Objectively, that's not good. That's not optimal for building muscle. But the problem is when you're so anchored down and ingrained into an eating disorder, it eats away at your logical thought process and it rationalizes some pretty unhealthy behaviors. Another point I want to make is that eating disorders can be extremely isolating, specifically as a man. This disorder is enough of an isolating issue in and of itself, but I feel like if you're a woman, people at least aren't as surprised if you open up about it. I wish that wasn't the case, but if you're a woman that opens up about an eating disorder, people are more likely to go, oh, that makes sense. She feels pressured to conform to societal beauty standards or whatever. That's understandable. Whereas with guys, our gender as a whole is still working on opening up and being vulnerable with each other, let alone opening up about something as personal as our struggle with food and how we perceive our bodies. It's constantly pushed onto us, this image of the big, tall, strong, masculine male archetype. And when we feel like we don't live up to those expectations, or we don't look a certain way, like male models in the magazines or fitness influencers, we feel inadequate and we feel just terrible about ourselves in general. I'll probably make a separate video about my own journey with my eating disorder, but for me, it was very isolating. It was a very isolating time for me mentally. It was like this pit that I couldn't dig myself out of. And after all, there's a reason why this disease has one of the highest mortality rates out there. Not to mention the treatments for this disease aren't always successful. Back in the beginning of 2019, I actually got admitted into a residential facility for my eating disorder. And one of the criteria was that you had to be under a certain weight, like clinically. I remember my weight at the time, it wasn't at that threshold until the time I reached out for help. And so that made me realize, I wouldn't have been officially classified as underweight until that point. For all the years, for like the years leading up to my eating disorder, I wasn't technically underweight, which makes you question whether or not I would have been admitted at any point during that time. So, back to the place that I went to, I'm not going to name anything, but I only lasted like 5 days before I checked myself out of there because it literally felt like hell. It felt like a prison, and it felt like I was a dog. But aside from that, out of like the 24 people that were there, I was literally the only guy there. Literally the only guy. And the only other man that I saw was like the psychiatrist they assigned us. And in and of itself, that felt extremely isolating. Like, this place didn't even have a male restroom. It had a restroom/locker room for the women, but there was just a single family bathroom that I had to use. And something like that, something that minor, indicates to me that so few men, even if they wanted to, they don't actually get the professional help that they need. And I have a feeling that a lot of treatment facilities out there aren't even like equipped or accommodating to deal with men. So what do we do about this? How can we get more men to come forward with their stories and have more men accepted into professional treatment or even just a peer support space? So I think the biggest way that we could do this is just share your story. If you're a guy watching this that has an eating disorder, share your story. Be open and be authentic with it. I can guarantee you that someone out there will relate to you. They'll relate to your experience. Realize that as a man, having an eating disorder doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you feminine. It doesn't make you any less of a man. It arguably makes you more of a man if you're brave enough and have the courage to share your struggles and be open with the people around you. And just as a final note, another thing you can do is to just find someone in your life that you trust. This could be a family member, a friend, a mentor, someone in your life that you can share this information with in a safe space. This might just be a male-related thing, but I don't think that a lot of men out there have accepting spaces in their lives to talk about these feelings or internal struggles. I think that's important for us as men to, one, make sure that we are vulnerable around the right people, and two, do a better job of cultivating those spaces for our fellow men. I feel like sometimes we can share personal information with people and they might be the wrong people. Maybe they're unsympathetic to us or they'll give us bad advice, and then we're left leaving the interaction feeling worse or more lost about our situation than we did before. So make sure you have someone trustworthy to talk to. If you don't, consider professional help. If you don't like the idea of professional help, consider posting anonymously on like support groups or forums, and I guarantee you someone will be out there that can help you or relate to your experience. And trust me, you are absolutely not alone in this. This is something tons of people, tons of men have dealt with and have overcame. So the help is out there, and you just have to make the choice to reach out. Make the choice to accept the help and to reach out. And yeah, anyways, that's all I got for you. As always, thank you for watching. Discord link is in the description, and I will see you guys later.